Let's jump to this next story and get into, just I guess some of the goings on. And this story scares me. This is the Kim Potter trial, manslaughter charge in taser shooting death of Daunte Wright. So the news today is they're doing jury selection. This story is important because this is what happens when you start losing your core moral framework. So one of the things we were just talking about is the Judeo-Christian moral framework, how within it, I believe, in the past, there were some, a lot of bad ideas in culture, but a lot of good ideas persisted. A lot of bad ideas were no longer carried on. And that's good news. We have free speech. We have life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. We have individual liberties. We have the innocent until proven guilty. And a lot of people don't know this, but the concept of being innocent until proven guilty is literally in the Bible. And the formulation of this idea expanded throughout history. Blackstone's formulation is better that 10 guilty persons escape than one innocent person suffer. To Benjamin Franklin, it is better that 100 guilty persons escape than one innocent person suffer. Literally comes from the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. If there is but one righteous person, I will not destroy the city. Or you probably know better than I do, Matt. I bring this up as we get into this story because as we begin losing these values to a cult, as I like to call it, I think, I don't know, Matt, you refer to them basically the same way. They don't care about justice. They don't care about what's right. They just say, we want retribution and we want you to suffer. So what happens in the shooting of Daunte Wright is a police officer was trying to arrest a man on a felony weapons charge. He had a warrant. The dude breaks free and jumps into his car. She yells, taser, 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 but pulls out her gun, shoots him. He drives off, crashes, dies from the gunshot wound. She would have been justified. I think most legal experts say if someone's wanted on a felony weapons charge and flees and jumps in their vehicle about to grab something, then the police are justified in assuming it's a deadly threat. But because she said taser and because they said it was an accident, she's getting charged with manslaughter. Like many of the trials we've seen so far with Rittenhouse, with Chauvin, with Ahmaud Arbery, all of these cases are political, are not based in whether or not we are going to try and find the facts. It's based on whether or not we can win in the public space. And the big disadvantage the right has is that they're not willing to commit harm against others. The left is. The leftists will burn down a city to get what they want. And that means these people running these trials, these jurors, the businesses, they're all going to say, just give the left what they want.
I got to say, if the cop was justified in killing this guy, deadly weapons charge, he dives into his car, assuming he's going to grab a deadly weapon. If she yells out, I love you, before she shoots him, it's no different than yelling out, garble, garble, or taser, taser. It doesn't matter what you yell out when you're using justified deadly force beforehand.
Agreed.
Yeah, the other thing to keep in mind, and you already know this based on the track record, but the one thing we know about BLM martyrs, especially the ones from George Floyd and on, is that almost all of them are have a history of really horrific, violent crime, and almost always against women. So Daunte Wright is no exception there. I think it was a felony weapons charge that he was wanted on, but that also stemmed from or was related to an armed robbery where he, allegedly put a gun to a woman and robbed her, and also committed sexual assault, by the way, because he stuffed his hand into her bra looking for for the money. And so sexual, and choked her. So very similar to what George Floyd did, barging into a woman's house, forcing his way into a woman's house at gunpoint and robbing her. So Daunte Wright did that as well, allegedly. And so we know that. And also the other thing is, I look at this as, from Kim Potter's perspective, I would equate it almost to like a medical error or something that maybe would happen with a surgeon. People die from medical errors all the time. Sometimes it's reckless and then you get litigation. But oftentimes it's a life or death situation. Surgeons are human beings. They're not perfect. It's not always going to go the right way. We just sort of understand that we can't lock surgeons in jail every single time a surgery doesn't go the right way. And so in this, I look at it, it's kind of she's thrust into this life or death situation that she didn't create. Daunte Wright created it, number one, by being a felon and wanted on a warrant, and then number two, by fighting the cop. So now he has taken what should have just been a normal interaction where he says, okay, I'm going to go with you, I'm wanted on a warrant, and that's it, and I'll go to jail. But he turns it into this life or death struggle. He decided to do that, and then she makes a mistake in the midst of that, and it's unfortunate that she did, but the idea that now we're going to put you in jail for that, I think is absurd.
She knows
honestly.
it. She's heard on the body camera footage saying, I'm going to prison. And I think the reason she said that is because of the political landscape. So my attitude, what really bugged me is when all of these leftists came out and started saying defund the police, my attitude was like, cops should just quit. but none of them would do it. As bad as it had gotten. Now, I understand when activists go out and say, abolish the police or whatever, you ignore it. When they say abolish the police and then start burning down police departments, and then Kamala Harris fundraises for them, and Joe Biden wins an election after his staff had been bailing these people out, and 25 people die, you get to a point where you're kind of like, maybe you should give the people what they want. And a bunch of people on the left got mad at me for saying it, because I was like, abolish the police? Okay. And he's only saying that because he thinks people will be upset after they realize what happens when the police are gone. And I'm like, maybe. But does it matter if I agree with you? So when I see Kim Potter, and even she seems to know the political ramifications of what's happening today, and they still want to remain cops, the problem I have is that the people of Minneapolis, the people in Minnesota, the people in New York will not stand up for the officers. And then the officers get thrown into the bus. They go to prison for these things. And I'm just like, if the people of these towns are unwilling to take responsibility for their own communities, maybe they should be given a defunded police department to see what happens. Maybe then they'll realize and they'll change their vote.
Wasn't this officer, correct me if I'm wrong, on desk duty her entire career, and because of defunding efforts, she was put on duty here?
Yes.
And what do you guys make of the argument saying that she should have never been there and that she should be held responsible for making that accident? Because it clearly does seem like she was going after a taser, but she went after a firearm. She didn't have much experience in the field. Do you think there should be some kind of accountability for that? Or what's your rebuttal against people talking about that?
I think if you look, if she's obviously done on the force, and so, okay, fine. So there's accountability there, but I would stick by this, that he, as Daunte Wright, as the wanted criminal, and no, they didn't arrest him. I think what was the original story they told us, that he was arrested for like an air freshener or something, some totally bogus
Right.
BS. Yep. It wasn't that at all. He was a wanted criminal, and she was trying to arrest him. He is the one who decided to escalate this and turn it into a life or death. He put his life on the line. He decided to do that. That was his decision. When you start fighting and physically struggling with a cop, that's what's going to happen. That doesn't mean that the cop has every right to just pull out a gun and shoot you no matter what. But the moment that you, especially as a wanted felon on a weapons charge, the moment that you decide to make that decision, you have now taken your life in your hands. And I don't think that we should put all that onus on Kim Potter.
No, I agree. And let's throw it to Kyle Rittenhouse. Joseph Rosenbaum threatened and then decided to attack a young man carrying a rifle. He created the danger. Kyle Rittenhouse didn't do it. Kyle Rittenhouse fled from the attack and tried to get away. And then the Zelensky fired the gun. I think when we look at a lot of these stories, there's a big factor in whether or not the individual was the person who instigated or created the harm. Now, of course, the left is now lying about, first they lied here. He was pulled over for an air freshener. The cops, it was unjust because they need the cops to be the ones who created the danger. When in reality, we know this story is not the case. We know Kyle Rittenhouse didn't create the danger. And then I'll throw it to the Ahmaud Arbery case. Ahmaud Arbery ran towards the truck where Travis McMichael was armed with a shotgun, flanked him around the truck, and then grabbed the shotgun from him. Yeah. So whether or not, I think if the question of the citizen's arrest in that regard is that it was not legal, then yeah, you can't stop someone while armed. It's false imprisonment. It's a felony. And then if the person dies, that's felony murder. But what we also have to consider that Ahmaud Arbery was the one who tried grabbing the shotgun for him, creating that danger. Now, in that one, it's a little more complicated because you can argue the danger was created by the McMichaels for trying to stop him. That's why I think that one's a little more murky and nuanced. But ultimately, my point is, I think we typically say we side with those who are being responsible and not trying to create the danger. But what happens when the danger is resolved and the person who didn't create it is the one who's still alive? We don't lock them up in prison.
Yeah, it's made. I talk to cops all the time. I'm sure you have, and I have the same question. I respect the hell out of police officers who still decide to do this job, but they're in a position right now. I can't imagine doing this when you know that the moment, like you said, Kim Potter said, I'm going to prison for this. They know that the moment a criminal decides to turn things physical, the police officer is in a no-win situation. No matter what happens after this, they lose possibly everything. Either they could die, and if they don't die, if they commit the sin of not dying, then they could lose their whole life and go to prison. And it's a total. We can't have a functioning civilization when our law enforcement officers are put in positions like this.
This is why I'm almost entirely for abolishing the police. Almost entirely because part of me is like the police as law enforcement makes sense. We need, in my opinion, good functioning law enforcement. I think many of our anarchists and, more ANCAP friends might be like, "Mrr." But I do. I think if you have a functioning legal system, you basically have what is supposed to be a neutral arbiter for conflict in our dense environments, and that makes sense. I don't want two neighbors showing up and punching each other in the face because they can't resolve a dispute. The cops get called, come, and they say we're the ones who are going to handle this. That makes sense to me. The problem I have now is that with that proposition you've mentioned, the police know, okay, I pulled this guy over. Now he's giving me the business. I'm out. I'm not going to stop him. He's a violent criminal wanted on a gun charge for armed robbery, but I will not be Kim Potter. But what happens if you get caught with a weapon? What happens if you live in New Jersey and, like this woman from Pennsylvania, she drove across the bridge, go to Atlantic City, didn't realize she couldn't do this, and had her legal gun with her. In Pennsylvania, you're allowed to have weapons. She drove across the bridge, gets pulled over, and the cop gleefully said, "Ma'am, you are going to prison for 4 years," and tried to actually destroy her life. The problem I have now is you do have these police like Kim Potter saying, "I'm going to prison," because she knows the political power of Black Lives Matter. But you had cops in Minnesota traveled south 20 miles to find a salon. I believe it was a salon owner who refused a cafe owner. She refused to close her business during the COVID restrictions. And the sheriff shows up with a smile on his face and arrests her. If these cops are scared of Black Lives Matter to the point where they will let them get away with riots and murder, but they're not scared to arrest regular Americans, working class citizens, and conservatives because these people never do anything to resist. Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to watch live, you can check out this channel Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and if you want more unfiltered and uncensored content with all of these guests, go to timcast.com and become a member. All of these guests you know and love in exclusive segments on our website where we are unrestricted in what we talk about, so you'll definitely not want to miss it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.